Welcome to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the movie review show from friends you can trust. Every week, we broadcast a review of a new film, talk about some film news, and recommend what to watch. We've been talking, critiquing, and gushing over movies ever since high school, and we aim to bring you honest conversation on relevant cinema. I am the host this week, Brandon Boldy, and I have with me Nick Moffat.
Yo, what's up?
How's it going?
Really good. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about Steven Spielberg and the West Side Story.
Absolutely. Good to have you on, Nick. So we will be reviewing the 2021 Steven Spielberg adaptation of West Side Story. But before we dig deep into the film and critiquing it, I want to talk about Spielberg a little bit. I want to hit a top 5 list from you, and I'll give mine as well, Nick. I know we've both been through his whole filmography at very different time periods, probably. I think you're more recent of a Spielberg junkie than me. I did mine like back maybe in high school as well. But it'd be cool to list your top 5. Why don't you give it to us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I did. I think back in 2016 or 17, I had a summer where I watched every single Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
And
I remember Derek did it with you too.
Yeah, it was super fun. Big fan of Spielberg. I'll try to always see a Spielberg movie. He's a great director, one of the all-timers. And honestly, I feel like he is more creative than people give him credit for. Like nowadays, I feel like a lot of people roll their eyes at Spielberg a little bit, of like boomer, whatever, like blockbusters. But when you ask top 5, it's tough because it's like, what direction do you go in? Do you go in like the blockbuster route or the super dramatic route? Because he really does both very well. He's one of the best for a reason, and I can't help it. But I'm gonna say at this moment, my list is subject to change at any time. I'm gonna say Jaws number 1.
Oh, okay.
Schindler's List number 2.
Yeah. How do you even put those like back to back?
No, totally. Crazy. Exactly. That's the thing is like Schindler's List to me it's a perfect movie. Like, and my number 3 is Jurassic Park. And I feel like it has to be those 3 in the top 3 because like Jurassic Park and Jaws to me are kind of tied as like maybe the best blockbusters of all time. Like they're up there as 1A, 1B basically as the top blockbusters. And then Schindler's List is basically a perfect movie. Today I'm gonna have E.T. at number 4.
Wow.
and Catch Me If You Can at number 5.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Is that something you always knew, or does Catch Me If You Can something you like rediscovered?
Catch Me If You Can goes up every time I think about it.
Okay.
It pops into my head. I go, oh man, I love that movie. And it just kind of like inches higher and inches higher. And part of it's I haven't seen Saving Private Ryan since that rewatch. It's a great movie. That one's just probably right outside my top 10. But it's kind of like this thing where I kind of feel like I have to give a little bit of credit to that DreamWorks years of Spielberg, because I feel like those are like less talked about years for his career, and to me that's like the best one to have those
I mean, Catch Me If You Can is like, I guess that's like a total underdog for you to pick that and put it that high. It doesn't get talked about enough, so it's probably good to give it more recognition. I mean, it surprised me.
Also, it's a great Christmas movie. Like honestly, like I feel like it has the themes of Christmas and family and loneliness, and also there's a big, like, the climax happens right around Christmas. So
okay, yeah, totally forgot that. I haven't seen it since like it probably literally came out.
Watch it with your family this year.
Definitely. All right, here's my top 5. A few different picks, but some overlaps. I didn't order them.
Fair,
but maybe I'll try to. Number 1, I would just have to give it to Schindler's List. Of course, it's a masterpiece, and I guess I'm going with the dramatic side rather than the blockbuster side. I'd put number 2 as Jurassic Park, just because it's a perfect rewatchable film that I've seen a million times, and it is so good and so intense.
So easy rewatch. It's so great.
Yeah. I would also put on that list. Maybe it's not number 3. It's probably not, but I have my eye on it right now. AI, artificial intelligence.
Wow. Interesting pick. That's maybe his weirdest movie, right?
Yeah.
Like that's his most creative
bizarre, movie. But I was in love with that movie when I saw it in high school. And now I'm seeing that it came out in 2001, but I remember being really into that movie a little bit later on, like, you know, my 2006 high school years. I thought it came out a little bit later than that. And then obviously I have to go with Saving Private Ryan. I know just missed your top 5, but I'd put that on my list around 4. And I think for my number 5, I would pick E.T. Though I know Jaws is your number 1. I literally have not rewatched that movie since I first saw it. So I just, it doesn't stay like in my head as well as it probably does yours. So that's one I need to rewatch because I'm sure it is his top 3.
Yeah. It's so good.
I'm sure that's a my bad kind of thing.
I can't believe you haven't seen it since you first watched it. Like it's so great.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I wanted to say, like, being a Spielberg fan, that he was one of the first directors that I like got into, probably because he has such popular movies as well as being like a, you know, directorial auteur of film. But I'm always surprised with, he fades on a lot of people's minds. You kind of were pointing out this at the start, from just how good of a visual filmmaker he is. And I'm always constantly blown away, especially in his last like decade and a half. Every time I sit down and see a Spielberg movie, just how visionary it is. And how much like effort and meticulous like thought he puts into just everything in his movies. And I think he's really kind of like lost that, you know, he's known for like Jaws and E.T. and stuff like that, but he is just like a cinematic visual, you know, incredible director, and people don't give him enough recognition for that.
Absolutely. And if you look at his later career, he's kind of in a fun stage right now where he kind of comes out in duos. Like it seems like he doesn't do a movie for like 3 years, and then he comes out with 2 very quick back to back. Like in I think 2017, 2018, he came out with The Post and Ready Player One back to back. You know, and
I remember that.
Ready Player One was, you know, just your blockbuster thing and very visionary, but also like, it was fine, you know, it wasn't great, yeah. But The Post was incredible. Like that was like a really personal movie that had something to say.
Way more stripped back. Probably why I was able to do both of them next to each other.
And then basically the same thing like a few years earlier, because it was the BFG and Bridge of Spies back to back, where the BFG was, you know, big and visionary blockbuster affair, but I mean, it was okay. It was an okay movie, but Bridge of Spies was also like really small in comparison and very, very personal, and it had something to say. And another really good movie, underrated too. Like
people love that movie.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you can go back in his career and like a lot of, you know, he does
Tintin,
have
War Horse, fun and dramatic. Yeah, you're right. He puts a lot of those back to back, right?
Back when we were in high school, like both War of the Worlds and Munich came out.
Right. Yeah. These are good points. I've never thought of this. He has these like his kind of up his Jaws side of things, and then he puts out a Schindler's List side of things. Right.
I mean, literally Jurassic Park and Schindler's List came out the same year.
Oh,
they both came out in 93.
All right. Great point. Great point.
So
yeah, like, I'm seeing that right here.
He's just like a master at doing like both the. I don't know how he's doing it. Like, does he film both of them at the same time? Is he just like developing one and working on the other? And it's not gonna take me as long to film the small personal one. So let's just. It's really something though.
Yeah, keeps the like bigger one in post production for longer and films a small one. I don't know, but it's incredible he's able to do stuff like this. And I don't know, he's like the most underrated, overrated director, maybe. I don't know how else to describe it.
No, it's totally true. I mean, like a lot of these guys who have been around forever. I mean, like I feel like I was saying the same thing about Martin Scorsese recently, that he's kind of underrated in that like his movies are like really creative and very personal, and you know, people kind of are just like, oh yeah, the mafia guy, but it's like, look at his career deeper. It's pretty interesting, and I feel like you can
extensive, elaborate. He's done everything. Yeah,
and like Spielberg makes populist movies. You know, like sometimes he's operating like really broad strokes, but then you look at his career and you actually like look at the movies. It's like
AI is not a broad stroke.
Like, no, not at all. And even like I would even say like Lincoln is kind of doing something different than what you would expect a Lincoln movie to be. You know, it's not as much a biopic as it is about like one event that was happening in Lincoln's life. You know, and I think that a lot of his career is like that. Like he's very thoughtful, and even when he's operating broad strokes or like again, he makes populist movies. That's what he does. He's not going to be David Lynch over here or something, or even like an art house director. That's like never been his style, but he is doing something. He just has a really great career.
And so with West Side Story, I've heard that this too, even though it is like such a known musical, it's such a big part of like culture, that this was kind of a passion project for him. Like, why West Side Story? Why now? It's because, you know, this man is like, you know, in his 70s, and he probably grew up with this being one of his favorite tales, and he's been wanting to make it for a very long time. And actually, just no other reason than that, just his own, you know, his own passion for wanting to make this.
I read on Wikipedia actually that the West Side Story soundtrack was the first like piece of media that was allowed into his house when he was a kid. Wow. And so he obsessed over it, and it was like it became his like favorite thing ever. And if you watch the movie, like at the end, the movie's dedicated to his dad, and that's like part of it. And also, like, he's in the middle of doing this tour thing, because his next movie, which is I'm assuming going to come out next year because he's filming it right now, is like a personal story about his childhood. So it's like he's kind of reflecting on his, you know, younger years right now.
Yeah, so that's exciting to hear. Let's jump right into it, give the official opening. So today we'll be reviewing the West Side Story. We'll give our initial thoughts and then later on move into spoilers. Let me give a brief synopsis of this film in case you don't already know somehow. An adaptation of the 1957 musical West Side Story explores forbidden love and the rivalry between the Jets and the Sharks, two teenage street gangs of different ethnic backgrounds. Not only is this an adaptation of 1957 musical, but that in turn is an adaptation of the 1600s play Romeo and Juliet, you know, whatever that was actually released. So this story is a tale as old of time, and it's definitely an adaptation, and beat for beat it goes through a lot of familiar stuff that you've seen before. This is directed by Steven Spielberg, stars Eslil Elgort, Rachel Zegler, and Ariana Devos. So let's get into it, Nick. I want to know your first impressions.
My first impressions. Well,
let's do it.
I gotta say, Brandon, I don't know. I feel like this is common knowledge, but I am not typically a fan of musicals. Like that genre in general isn't my cup of tea. Like there are musicals here and there that I'm into. You know, I always like to cite like Moulin Rouge as like, you know, they're doing something different. I like the musicals that are a little bit. Romeo and Juliet, was it Romeo and Juliet? Is that what you said?
Oh wait, no, I was thinking something totally different. Keep going.
No, I'm okay with Romeo and Juliet. That, you know, Buzz Luhrmann's, you know, but pretty good. But yeah, like I'm not, you know, like Grease. Like that's one of my least favorite movies. Like not a fan. I actually am not really a fan of the original one either, like the original West Side Story.
Okay, so you've seen it. I was going to ask you that too. I have not.
Okay, yeah, I've seen it, and it just, again, it's just not really like my thing. But you know, I've been trying to go in with open minds on things. Like I was like, I'm not gonna go in thinking I don't like musicals, because actually I do have a newfound respect for musicals, especially because like my work like made a musical last year, and I was pretty involved in the editing of it, and I kind of see more of the craft behind it, you know. And anyway, that being said, I did really like this movie. I did I had a really good time with it. I especially, to me, it felt like a musical in the purest form, good and bad, like good and bad with that, in that like it felt like the sets were real. Like it felt like they built these sets and they had these wide shots that were to die for. You know, the scenes of the dancing were great. You know, there were these like really intricate dance numbers. There were some scenes that I kind of want to talk about more in detail as we get on, but like there were a few scenes in there that like they told the story through, you know, through the dance, and it was like really captivating. And
agreed.
You know, I do think that like with a musical, there are often times where you have to go like, oh yeah, yada yada yada, this happened, you know, and you kind of have to like, almost like a sitcom or something, where you have to like roll your eyes and be like, okay, they're in love now or something. You know, it's like things happen, musicals happen in a fantastical world, and that is kind of hard for me to get past. That's kind of part of my thing that's hard for me to get past. But
I remember I just watched Les Mis like 2 months ago with Kelly and Sean, and I was shocked to remember how quickly the like pivotal love story and that musical happens as well. It's like over the course of like 5 minutes, they go through one single song and they're like deathly in love with each other for the rest of the musical.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's from then on, it's just like, this is the story.
Right.
Yeah.
So you
it's just something you got to go with.
You just got to accept it and move on, or else you're not going to like the movie, and I kind of like had to like work through that a little bit. And I think because of that, I am a little bit of emotionally distant to parts of this movie. And I did think the movie, I hate complaining about this, but I did think it was like too long in that sense too, where like I wasn't fully emotionally committed. And then there were these scenes that like, I didn't think really did much for anyone except a fun musical number. And
it's that Broadway musical length that shows have to be. It's like that 2 hours and 45 minutes on stage, because you do like hour and 20 intermission, hour and 40 done. And like it's it's usually two halves like that. And to be on Broadway, you usually have to write it to be a specific length like that. And it's not always conducive to film when you do it like exactly the same as well.
Right. And it's like they're not going to cut the number because it's probably a really popular song. I mean, again, we can get into this, but yeah, so generally speaking, I really did like it. And there were a few hangups of like musical stuff, but again, I might not even be the right person to be complaining about that with, so what did you think?
I think we're surprisingly on close to the same page. I think like this film is like dazzling to watch. It's so fun to see these like street gangs like dancing and doing ballet and twirls like in front of you, and like having the choreography match the camera work. It's just like so energetic and like, I don't know, exhilarating in some of these scenes where I'm just like, holy shit, like the camera's moving around like this and they're spinning this way and the gun is going here, and like it's just like this total dance through and through. And it really hits hard at many moments. It's also cool, just like I've never seen this story. I never saw the original West Side Story. I haven't seen it on live or anything. I do know Romeo and Juliet, which I think this musical has a lot of the like goods and bads that, I mean, Romeo and Juliet rushed the hell out of things too. Like, and then all of a sudden they're, killing each other or killing themselves at the end. And you're like, does this even make sense? But it's also the 1600s. Like, sure, I'll go with it kind of thing. Right. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like forgiveness you have to do to get over the hump of this, like this old tale that you're watching. But there's a lot to love in this movie. And a lot of it, I was just sitting there thinking to myself, like, God, Spielberg is great. Like you mentioned the sets and just how big and massive they looked. And I don't know, it reminded me like it was like stuff of War of the Worlds, or just like he puts the time and effort to have this just look right on screen and not be cheap.
It was filmed on location. Like I looked into it because I was captivated by just the set design.
I mean, even the rubble on location.
Apparently they filmed this in New York City and Paterson, New Jersey. And they literally built sets like in parts of town that like they could build like whole blocks basically.
Right. The Paterson stuff was probably like the construction like areas, the alleyways and stuff. But yeah, there's a ton of just like New York cityscapes and like, the streets of the Upper West Side and stuff was shown all throughout here. And it was interesting seeing that like this is where the Lincoln Center is now. Like they're evicting people like on a 10-block radius here because they need to put in this like will eventually be this beautiful like city arts center for everyone to come together on. But like, yeah, seeing this from a perspective of like a 1600s Romeo and Juliet Shakespeare story and the 1950s Broadway musical that I never knew, and learning that story for the first time, like that alone was just interesting enough for me. I do want to mention that this is Stephen Sondheim's first musical that he did the music and lyrics to. I think when in his 20s. Me and Sean talked about this on the last movie we reviewed, because they also mentioned Sondheim and Tick, Tick, Boom a few times. And Steven Sondheim passed away, I think last week or a week and a half ago.
Right, he did.
And he's one of the most like largest and influential musical musicians or writers of all time. And this was the start of that. And he went on to make, and when people look back at his career, West Side Story is like, it's iconic, but it's also like definitely his first musical. And he goes on to make much more beautiful, rich musical experiences after that with the actual like songs to be much more like pure and remarkable. But it was cool seeing like this being his first one.
What are some of the other ones he's done?
He's done
Sunday in the Park
with not Sound of Music. Okay. No, Sunday in the Park of George. He did Follies. He did The Butcher, The Barber. Why am I forgetting what that one is?
The Johnny Depp one.
Sweeney Todd. He did Sweeney Todd. Into the Woods, which was remade like 5 years ago as well. Yeah. But yeah, he's done a lot of like remarkable works that people really love.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I was impressed.
Let's go into detail. I want to know like scenes, characters.
Okay.
What stood out to you?
So first of all, the biggest scene that I was probably most impressed by, maybe my favorite scene was the fight with the gun. So Mike Face
in the like warehouse, right?
No, this was like on a bridge, like it was a dilapidated bridge. Yeah. Okay. And Mike Face played Riff, who was like, he was one of the Jets. He was one of their he was like the leader kind of the Jets. And first of all, I just want to say real quick that I thought he was a great character. That was something that I wasn't truly expecting, that his character to be so good, because he was a great heel in that like he said and did a lot of bad things, but also you could understand where he was coming from on some level. Like he totally felt like the world was dicked him over, and he was like just trying to preserve what he had. And I don't know. I just thought his character was more interesting than I was anticipating.
Okay. Anyway, also coming from the original one as well, or
honestly, I don't really remember the original one as well. Okay. And I don't think I was as kind to the original one when I watched it. Like, I think I turned it on and I was pretty quickly like, oh, I'm not into this, so again, like I'm coming to this with fresh eyes, like I'm trying to enjoy musicals as much as possible now, like I'm seeing it differently, I'm growing, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, that scene with the gun. So Riff gets a gun that he's going to bring to the brawl, and Ansel Elgort is the main character. He plays what's his name? I
don't remember the names.
And he wants to stop the brawl. He sees that his friend has a gun, so he steals it, and then they have this like fight over it, and it's like a dancing fight, but
no lyrics too. It's like it's just all choreography, right?
Yeah. And they start like, starts out pretty playful, like they're like going back and forth, they're like, but as it starts increasing with the tempo, and it quickly becomes like very like serious, where like nothing actually, like the gun doesn't go off or anything, but you kind of get the sense that it might, where like tension is building up, and they're actually like fighting over it, and their hands are both on it, like literally like pulling on each side of it. And I just really loved how the music integrated with the dance movements in that song, and how it really built up something. I agree. That scene was like fantastic. It like was really kind of, I want to say like experimental, but just like this ballet gun fight on this like dock with holes in it, and they're like kicking up dust, and no one's singing or really speaking, and it just keeps going on and on and on, just to be like, look what we can do, this is cool as shit. Like, yeah. And it kind of reminded me, I remember when I saw some, like, was it Oklahoma on Broadway like 4 years ago, just like this classic revival. Tickets weren't very expensive, and I was excited to see it, just because like you just kind of always hear about it. And it's very dated, but a lot of stock is put into like the choreography of some of these old musicals, and like the dancing alone and what they're able to like show you on stage, like is supposed to be the thing entertaining you. And like this scene really showed that in like visual form. Yeah, absolutely. What was your favorite scene? Anything else stand up for you?
That was a big one. I remember the intro for kind of similar reasons. When all these I think it's the like gang kids are coming out and they just start like snapping their fingers, and then they'll like start getting together and they'll just do like a little twist and they're still like walking down the street, and then we'll do like a jump kick, and it's just so like awkward to see these like rough working characters to jazz music just start dancing out of nowhere, but then like everything starts happening in sync and it just really takes off, and it's just so creative and like special, and like I don't like right away I kind of that strapped me in for the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree pretty much completely. Like the movie gave me a lot of goodwill immediately because of the opening scene.
Yeah.
Like that, the opening scene with like again the sets, like just the wide shots of old New York, buildings coming down, construct like people in transition, but then like all these characters moving down the street and being in sync with each other and dancing. But then they also had background characters too. There were people just walking down the street doing their own thing, kind of moving along with the music as well. And like I was taken into the world, you know.
Yep.
I was brought in by the opening scene for sure. And then they threw the paint on it, and then a little brawl breaks out. And immediately too, you're like, okay, this is old Hollywood too. Like this is not just like a modern take of West Side Story. So much of this was like tied to the original. Like it felt like this was a throwback to the 50s, 60s, how
exactly
musicals used to be.
I kind of was saying that at the start, like this is just like a remake. It's not like a unique adaptation. They're going for an old look and feel, even with a lot of like the camera angles, a lot of the camera work and the lighting. Like they're trying to make this, you know, it's not like scratchy old film look, but in a lot of ways they're trying to make this look like a 50s movie. The music is the same. It's like big band jazz music. It's no, you tell me. I'm guessing it's beat for beat like the same as just the actual musical or the 60s movie as well.
It's pretty close. Close. I was kind of reading about the different like plot points there's a few things here and there. Wikipedia is actually saying that this is closer to the original Broadway performance than it was the 61 movie.
But, yeah, so you're not coming into this like trying to see some big re-envisioning or, you know, changing like plot points to make them actually like feel better, make more sense. It's like it has the goods and probably the bads of something that was written in the 50s. And yeah, I kind of at some point I do want to start going to spoilers, but I do want to point out like one of my favorite scenes as well was, I guess we keep just pointing out like all the big brawls, but they just work so well, was the actual sequence in the warehouse later on in the film. And I also really appreciated how intense and like fucked up it got. Like I didn't know that this like musical was going to go that far. And when it like shit actually started hitting towards the end of that scene, I was like, holy shit. Like it was really unexpected. And I like felt the impact of that violence.
One thing I really liked about that scene too, I mean, I agree that scene was really well done, and the tension built with the music, and that was really cool. But I really liked the character beats in that scene. You know, I liked how Ansel Elgort's character came in, and you know, one thing that, you know, I struggle with in movies in general is when I feel like characters can't just talk it out. Sometimes I'm like, come on guys, can't you just like say what you want and just talk it out? And
especially I don't know if it necessarily is in this one, but especially when it's all just a miscommunication issue.
Totally. This could have been an example just like that. It kind of was a little bit, but Ansel Elgort actually comes in and he tries to like, he goes up to the top shark and was like, can we just talk? Like I didn't mean to offend you, you know, can we not do this whole thing? And then he kind of starts punching him, and he just starts taking it at first. And I thought that was a really like cool like character moment, you know, like I was really into that part of the story, you know, where he was trying to practice nonviolence, but you know, in a world so full of like hate and anger, then it of course turned into a brawl.
Yeah, his lip starts bleeding and his eye starts bleeding, and he's like, how long is he going to take this for to try to make the apology work? But then it just keeps, you know, escalates even further from there. Yeah, the character beats and the emotional impact like worked really well for me in that scene. I did not know the story went that far, like as to what like the conclusion of that scene is. I do want to start jumping into spoilers so we can actually like talk about the stuff that ends up happening in this movie.
Can I say a couple other things before we jump in? Just
Go
a
for it.
couple of little things. I
Yeah.
just wanted to point out a few of the acting. I know I've mentioned Ansel Elgort a couple times, but I actually thought he was great in this movie. I thought this is the kind of movie that he shines in. He was in Baby Driver, and I feel like there's something about his like baby face that like
He was
comes
also
across really
he was
well in
Ready Player
musicals.
One as well, right?
No, I don't think so.
Or is that a totally different
I think that was
guy?
Ty Sheridan, right? But
I'll look it up, but they look so similar. What?
But yeah, I mean, I thought he was fantastic. Rachel Zeiger, you mentioned her before. She plays Maria, who's like the female lead, and that was her first movie. Which,
oh my god, it is a different person. They look the exact same.
But yeah, I thought Rachel Zegler was great, and as her first movie too, I was like, awesome, like great job. Ariana Devos is her sister-in-law, and she's kind of like the number two. Like she's kind of like the lead, like the main supporting actress, I would say. And I thought she was just like so gorgeous and cool. Like her character was given time to develop, like not a lot of time, but like she had her moments and she took those moments. I thought they were really cool. Like she has a moment.
Was that the love interest or the wife or girlfriend?
The wife.
Okay, the older one.
The lead shark, the leader.
Yeah, okay. Both of them were like shockingly good. Like they like really stood out to me. And the like vocal performances, and you could tell they have like actual like experience when it comes to some of the more intimate songs. They like really let it out, and it works really well.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was really cool was do you know the character Valentina? She owned the drugstore. She played Anita in the 1961 version.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool.
That's really special. And she also gets her own like song towards the end, and a big scene at the end too. That was really powerful.
And there was a creative choice that was made in this movie. We keep talking about how Spielberg is like a populist filmmaker, it's a mainstream movie. He made a choice to not put any subtitles when the characters were speaking Spanish. And it was like, these are like white guys, like Italians versus like Puerto Ricans. And anytime the Puerto Ricans are speaking their native language, it did not give you any subtitles. And I thought that was a awesome creative choice. Like it was kind of thing where like, I didn't know what they were saying for a lot of it, but body language.
But
like,
you know what they're saying.
I know what they're saying for sure. I've seen enough movies or whatever, but it just like, I just thought that was a really cool creative choice to just like, nope, this is another language and they're speaking it and you can still tell what they're saying. Like you can move with the movie. You don't need
so I'm guessing the 60s movie was subtitled at parts.
Honestly, I don't remember, but I'm sure I actually think all of it was in English. Like I had to guess, I'm pretty sure all of it would have just been English.
Actually good point. Just English with like accents or something.
Yeah.
And I wonder what the musical is probably all English, just with different accents for the different people.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there were a few Spanish songs in there, but again, I'm not an expert on this, but there was also a trans character that I thought was like a pretty interesting, cool choice too. Like they were like an outcast among the Jets. And I just thought that was like pretty bold for I don't know, it being a Disney movie and having that character was a pretty big part of the movie too. So
do you remember, I guess I keep asking this, do you remember that from the 60s movie?
I don't think that was in the 60s
just
movie,
not in the 60s movie, but that had to have been in the musical then. Maybe that's one. Well, we'll have to look this up after, but I'd be really interested if it wasn't in the original musical and they just added that in its own right. So I'm guessing it was.
If I remember correctly, I feel like it was just like a character that was kind of an outcast, like they were just kind of like, or maybe it was a girl that wanted to join the Jets, but in this it was like pretty explicitly like this was like a trans, and they were a big part of the movie, and I liked how they stood up for themselves and like kind of there's that big scene in the police station, which wasn't my favorite scene in the movie, but I liked how they could express themselves and like fought for who they were.
I was trying to figure out throughout what that character, or why the character was there. Like thinking that it would have like a bigger impact at the end, just because like that character was so sparsely throughout, and just you kept seeing like one-off shots, so you like were like, all right, this is going to come back. Like every time, sometimes when like movies show like a specific shot of like something or someone, you know it's going to come back in a bigger way. And so I was constantly curious, as like, why is this in the movie, why is this in the movie? And then when they started bringing out like the, like you said, at the police station, where he actually has to like defend himself being like a trans character, or it, I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. And then like in my head, as I was walking home, I was thinking like, maybe this was like in the original musical, and they're making it like, and they're trying to say something in the 50s out of this regard. And it was much harder to say, like to do or actually make explicit in the 50s. But here in this movie, they're like giving it more of an obvious, like, I don't know, point or display on screen. And that's kind of like what you just said there. You think like maybe it was a character in the movie, but they like really didn't say anything too in depth about it.
Yeah, I mean, I really should have, pulled up the research on it and stuff. But I get the sense that the movie was trying to just kind of tell the Jets were just wrong in a lot of ways, and I feel like the movie does a good job at, the story does a good job at like making you understand where they're coming from. They aren't just like purely like evil for the sake of being evil, but also it's like they were wrong and like they had their walls up in a lot of ways. And I feel like that was one of the ways that they were showing that they were not the greatest. But then when
like
that character
extremely bigoted in every way, not just against the, like Puerto Ricans or stuff.
Yeah.
But I did like you're saying, they gave them reasons for being complete piece of shit assholes. And one of them was like one of the first times the cop was there, talking about how like they're like children of pieces of shit who stayed in this neighborhood and never left and did crime themselves, and so now they're still here doing crime themselves. And like it's just like, yeah, it made you just know the story, the backstory, the generational backstory behind this gang.
And then the scene right
nowhere else to go.
And then the scene right after that, when they it's like Riff talking to Ansel Elgort for the first time, and like in the basement, and he's trying to get him to come to the dance with him and then join the brawl with him. He's like trying to bring him back into the Jets, and Ansel Elgort starts like going on about how he's changed as a person. Like he went to jail, and he's like, I've learned a lot and I've grown, and I don't want to be. He starts talking like in a meaningful way, and Riff, you can see in his face that he's taking it in, but then it like becomes too much for him. And I feel like you might even see water in his eyes, but then he's like, you're just too deep for me. I am who I am. I'm, and I like being a Jet or whatever. And then he like leaves, and it's like, so much is said right there. Like, I feel like I know people that are kind of like that, but
yeah, or like you're trying to say something, and then they have to crack a joke over top. They're like, they can't take whatever's in front of them too seriously. And as soon as this guy's best friend was like trying to explain something more deep than he could handle, he just like shrugged it off his back. This is dumb. I'm out of here. Like, and just turned around and walked away from it. Yeah, that was a very telling scene for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I thought this movie was great. We can go to spoilers whenever you're ready now.
Let's do it. Spoilers in case we'll go into any more specifics about this story that everyone probably should kind of already know how it resolves. But if you don't want to find out, we're going to go into spoilers. Let's do it. Let's talk about some of the ending plot points that worked and maybe didn't work. There's a lot of like Romeo and Juliet isms in this movie that are hard to get over, but you can kind of just accept for it just being an honest adaptation of something very old, I guess. We already talked about one being the love story, right? Of it not really being a love story. It's just like 100% assumed from just like one look that these people will die for each other for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, the dance sequence was really well done. Like, we didn't mention it yet, but like I thought that dance sequence was really great. And then they hang it, like basically like Tony and Maria hang out behind the stairs or behind the bleachers, and then they they share a moment, and then Tony's
You're
like,
really tall. You're
he's
really
like,
short.
I'm in love with her, and I will do everything I can to be with her forever. And it's like, okay,
yeah.
I
And
guess
then the next time they hang out in the cloisters on their date was like not that fun of a time either. They're like already arguing over their rival gangs and like already having kind of an upsetting decisions to make with each other. It's just like, it's hard to believe, but it's also hard to be angry at, because like how else are you going to tell this story that's like super old? Like you just got to tell it and let it be, I guess. Another thing that was like actually really hard for me to get over, and the story knows that it's hard to get over too, because they acknowledge it, is just her fucking her brother's killer like an hour after it happens, right? And then 10 minutes, like 5 minutes later in the movie, the sister-in-law walks in and tells her like, what the fuck are you doing? This is the worst thing ever. So it's not like the movie doesn't know it, but at the same time it's just like, who are these characters? Like this is so unbelievable beyond anything. Like,
I mean, it's like you have to just accept that it's based in like pure emotion, right? Like these two fell in love immediately, or they're gonna fight for that love. And I agree. I had a hard time getting over that. And then I did appreciate that the movie was like, yeah, no, we know that this is weird. But I liked in that moment that Ansel Elgort was like, I'm going to go turn myself into the police. And she was like, I don't know. It was like something with her that was like, I can't lose both my brother and you or something, It was like,
I felt that. She's like, don't you do that to me. Like, fuck you. Like, I don't think this is what the movie meant, but in my head, because I was kind of like grossed out by everything that was happening there, I kind of saw him as like, oh, like, don't make me go to the police, like as like a little puppy thing. And like, that's probably not what they were going for, but my head kind of went there, and it just like made me roll my eyes even more. Like him knowing she would take him, but he was just trying to make it sound worse than it like. I don't know, but I just wanted to mention it, but I'm not too hung up by it because I know it's like, I mean, based off something from the 1600s. So like,
I was also like hung up on like the other character, Chino. Chino's the one that goes on date with Maria in the beginning to the dance before Maria hit it off with Tony. And he's kind of just like hanging around for most of the movie. And I don't know, you get the sense that he's kind of a nice guy. Like he's like more mild mannered than the rest of the sharks and the gangsters.
Yeah.
But then like after Bernardo, Maria's brother dies, he finds the gun. He's like, I am going to kill Tony. And like, I didn't really get that jump with the character.
It's like you're supposed to believe that like he felt wronged that she chose Tony over him, and also that like he killed Puerto Rican, so he's probably also mad about that. But that, you're right, that too is just like this like revenge that we're not used to in modern times. It's like, so what, you went to a dance and she like danced with somebody else, like get over yourself. Now you're gonna go kill someone because of it? Like,
I mean, toxic masculinity, but it just does feel like, I don't know. And also
so exaggerated
to the point where he was just like out in the street and everyone was like, I mean, Chino's got a gun and if he sees Tony, he's going to be dead. It just was like, someone should stop this guy. He's out of control. But
like everyone somehow knew about it. Like the police even know about it. Like, Tony's just out there roaming the streets in New York.
Yeah. To the point where like Tony eventually, gets to the point where Tony's like, he's out there and he's like, Chino, just where are you? I want you to kill me.
He's a block away.
Yeah. And although I will say, like in that scene that I just mentioned where Tony's running through the streets, I thought Ansel Elgort was like pretty fantastic in it though. Like he had like tears rolling down his face, and I thought that was like good acting for this. So
yeah, the ending as well. Well, the ending surprised me a little bit because it didn't go full Romeo and Juliet, right? And like so much of it was like beat for beat that story, but then the end, I guess I thought she was going to kill herself. I thought she was going to grab the gun from him, put it to her head, and kill herself.
It's better that she didn't, though, right? Yeah, like it was a better movie. It's
totally fine she didn't. And the words she says there are like so good.
Yeah.
And she was just like, how many bullets do I have to kill every single person here, including myself? You're just like, oh,
yeah.
like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That says more than her just like silently taking the gun and killing herself in the alley or something.
Definitely. And
it was pretty good. It was pretty good writing to have her kind of final exclamation be that of just pure anguish at that moment.
Definitely. And it was the way the ending comes together is like, this is a tragedy at the truest like form, right? It's like the two characters could have wound up together very like easily if just timing was a little bit different. And the character mentioned before, Anita, played by Ariana Devos, the gorgeous one I mentioned, after her husband dies, and she sees that her little sister-in-law was like sleeping with the guy who killed him, she gets rightfully angry, but then she is like willing to help her.
Yeah, well, she's like, I know what it's like to stay with somebody who's done a lot of bad shit, because love is sometimes stronger than that. I think that's where that kind of understanding eventually comes from.
Yeah.
And then, her relaying the wrong message.
Yeah.
That I didn't remember that or expect that. There was a lot of stuff at the end that like came together, and especially with how like artsy most of the movie is, when it started getting into like the violence and the death and the like rape and the like scene, and then the like final scene with the store owner, and just her like walking in on all that and like really, I guess, sticking it to all these like kids. A lot of it was pretty impactful and well done.
Yeah, I thought that that rape scene was like pretty rough, like pretty scary, and how quickly those guys got out of control. And and then you don't blame her for delivering the wrong message after that. You're kind of like, she's kind of looking out for her sister too. She's like, if these guys,
I was surprised she was going to relay the message at all. And so I wasn't really surprised when she like changed her mind too much. Right.
Especially after what happened or what almost happened. And then Valentina, who I mentioned, the store owner, she like, I know all of your names. I watched you grow up, and
I knew your father's right.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, it's just like, it's rough.
I liked how poignant she was, just like, and I'm now watching you all turn into rapists. And she just like bluntly said that to each and every one of them. It was pretty like, it felt good. Just to have this lady like stand there and say that, which they all, I guess, respected enough to take that to heart, even if they do have a heart left in them.
Since I got the sense that they were just like, okay, well, the Jets are done, kind of like,
their leader's dead. We all know we're the worst people ever. And again, like that's also a like kind of an eye shrugging moment, but a thing that like I took with a grain of salt in storytelling is the ending. There's problems with them just like picking up the body and marching off in sync. I'm like, okay, like if this was a more realistic movie, there's no way this is like would work for me. But I guess in this heightened fantasy musical state, like I was able to accept it for what it was. The like kind of final shot conclusion.
Totally. It was a good shot too. It's like it was one of those wide shots that just took the whole set in. And I just
there's some shots that are just mind-blowing. I just want to point out, and it's in the trailer too. And well, not the one when they're dead, because they do it twice, but it's like the shadows coming in on this like salt warehouse.
Oh yeah.
And specifically the second time they do it at the end of the scene when there's two bodies on the floor and the police are coming in, like, oh my God.
Yeah, great.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's just throughout this movie. Anything else, Nick?
I think that's about it for me. I liked it. Despite it being a musical.
I liked it despite there being things you just have to accept of it being a musical from the 50s, from a 1600 story, and just some things you have to get over.
Yeah, I mean, I hope people see it. This does to me feel like a very much like a good like Christmas kind of like family, movie to watch with your family and stuff. Like, even though it's a tragedy and it's not like an uplifter at all, it's still like, it's so classic, and it makes, I don't know, it's a movie, it's very much like a movie, it's go to the theater and take it in, because it's a lot, it's a big time movie.
Totally agreed. I will say, coming up next, we have a lot to go over for holiday movies to watch with your family. Next one is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home, which we'll likely be seeing this weekend and reviewing next Tuesday, probably on some kind of call together, maybe me and my brother, maybe me and somebody else, but we'll figure it out as we get there. Thanks for joining, Nick. It's been fun talking movies with you again.
Definitely. Very much. It was very fun talking about this movie. I'm glad we were able to do it.
Please like and subscribe. This is the Monthly Movie Dispatch. See you later.
Bye.